Welcome back, fans, to another episode of the ECHL Insider. I am your host, Garrett Hunter, and today we talk about the South Division in the ECHL. But before that, one piece of ECHL news to get to: an affiliate change, which we have not seen so far this offseason. We saw the announcement of the first affiliate for the Gargoyles, but now an affiliate change in Allen, Texas. The Americans going back to being affiliated with the Ottawa Senators organization. So that's the Ottawa Senators from the NHL and the American Hockey League's Belleville Senators. So very good affiliate. You think about Ottawa's team that's really developing right now. They want to develop more young players, and that's exactly what they can do with another young team in Allen, Texas. So I think the head coach, Steve Martinson, welcomes this affiliate, and they hope to have a lot of success with it for all teams involved. Well, with that, let's jump into the South Division. This a division that is very, very tough to play in. Some people say this is the hardest division in the ECHL. It is certainly difficult. Really, really hard to make the playoffs in this division. And really what a grind it is, especially with how close the teams are. A lot of aggressive travel schedules. You'll play a game sometimes Friday night. You get on the bus and you go somewhere and play Saturday, and sometimes even move to play a Sunday game. So it's very hard travel, very, very long hours in the South Division, but these are some of the best competitions really we see all season long in the South Division when it comes to playoff time. So let's jump right in. Of course, you can see in front of me, this is the way the teams finished in the regular season. Over here, the number 1 South Carolina Stingrays, and on my left, your right, the number 7 Greenville Swamp Rabbits. So let's jump right in from number 7 Greenville. Obviously disappointing last year, right? You finished last, but especially when you look at the season before that, they finished first in the South Division. You know, much like Adirondack, they went from first place to last place. Really disappointing for this Greenville squad. But they have a lot of optimism, right? You bring in Chad Costello from Rapid City to be your new head coach. You really want to have him unite this roster. They bring back a lot of young guys on this roster so far. I think there's a lot of optimism in Greenville. You know, you can't get really any worse than you did last year, but they're ready to compete now. You know, that's really the standard in Greenville. They want to compete this year, make it a quick rebuild. And I think in some ways they're not really thinking of it as a rebuild. They're just kind of thinking of it as pivoting in a different direction, I think. And it can happen, obviously, in this league. We've seen teams make very quick improvements. I think that's what Greenville is going to be looking to do this fall. And at number 6 was the Atlanta Gladiators. Another disappointing season, obviously, in Gas South Arena for these guys. And I mean, you know, you look down the stretch, never really in the playoff race. It was decided officially in March, but really in February, we were even thinking that we knew the top 4 teams. But, you know, Atlanta, again, they pivoted into a different direction. They named Matt Ginn the new head coach. He's brought in a lot of new guys and a few talented skill players, I would say, at the forward position from last year's team. So I think he's really crafting his own roster, definitely bringing back some guys from last year. He was the assistant coach last year, but he's also bringing in several new faces to Atlanta that they want to win this season. So big task, obviously, in front of Matt Ginn. This is a franchise looking to make the playoffs and have success there, and that's something they haven't done for a while. So big task in front of Ginn, but I think he is assembling a really good roster that's kind of flying under the radar right now in the South Division. And at number 5 was the Savannah Ghost Pirates. 3 consecutive seasons, their first 3 seasons as a franchise, missing the playoffs. And, you know, last year, yes, they finished 5th, but never really in that playoff race again with Savannah. But, you know, you look at this fan base and how loyal they are. I think this is a more patient fan base so far. And fan bases aren't really patient when it comes to winning, but I say that in the sense that they're still showing up. They're packing the arena out, even in mid-April when they know their team's not going to be in the playoffs. They're still coming to games. The building is still loud. even when it's not a playoff race game. So I think that says a lot about the fan base and a lot about this team. And I think now it's about, is the team going to respond and be able to bring playoff hockey to Savannah, Georgia for the first time? So, this fan base is going to be ready to go. We saw Iowa break through in their fourth season and make the playoffs last year. Now Savannah opens up their fourth season of existence. Jared Stahl, a lot of pressure on him. It's only his second season, but they want results now in Savannah. They have the fan base. It's time to give that fan base really something to cheer about when we go into postseason hockey. So definitely a season where Savannah thinks they can make the playoffs, and there's going to be a lot of pressure on this coaching staff to make the playoffs in Savannah. Well, at number 4 is the Orlando Solar Bears. And yes, 2 consecutive seasons where they finish 4th, yet knock off the top seed in the South Division. This Orlando team eliminated the number 1 Brabham Cup winning South Carolina Stingrays in 7 games in the first round of the playoffs. Quite the shocker to a lot of people. But if you remember, I did actually go with the upset in my playoff predictions that Orlando would win this series. You can go back and watch that video later. But yeah, it was a really fun series to see. This Orlando team was several times looked like they were out of it, and they just never gave up. They never quit. They lose game 5 at home in overtime, go down 3-2, and they go to South Carolina and do what only one other team did all season long, and that's win back-to-back games in North Charleston Coliseum. Only one team did that in the regular season. So Orlando to take game 6 and 7, just incredibly impressive. The coaching staff, the players, they all believed they could get it done, and they did. And speaking of coaching staff, now in Orlando it shifts, right? Matt Karkner is off to the American League, and now it's the Mike McDonald era in Orlando. So new coaching staff, but same expectations for this team, right? They expect to be there in the playoffs, especially when you look at the roster. It looks good again in Orlando. Let's think about returners: Tyler Bird, Anthony Bardero, Aaron Luchuk, and yes, in goal, John Gillies, who posted a shutout in Game 7 against South Carolina. So this roster looks good. So far, they haven't not a lot of signings at the defenseman position. We'll be honest about that. So Orlando's going to look to sign, obviously, a lot more defensemen, get some experience on that side of the puck before they open the season. And I think it can be a big season for these guys. A lot of expectations here, but I think Matt McDonald can be the coach for them and lead them in a great direction in the City Beautiful. Up next at number 3 is the Jacksonville Icemen, who for the 4th consecutive season were eliminated to their arch rival Florida Everblades. So Jacksonville, they are just crossing their fingers at this point. Let's not play Florida in the playoffs, and that's hard to do. It's hard to get out of the South Division without seeing Florida and Brad Ralph and that team. But Jacksonville believes that they can take the next step, right? They had an interim coach, Sean Tiekle, had some success at the end of the regular season, so they promote him to be the full-time head coach going forward. So Tiekle and Garrett Cockrell, the coaching staff now in Jacksonville, and really the expectations couldn't be higher, right? They really expect to get out of the South Division now. They've been in the playoffs, been there, done that now. They expect to be the team to beat in the South Division this year. Great roster already starting to be assembled from Jacksonville. Good signings already, but they expect, this fan base, as good as any in the league, they expect to be making a deep playoff run this year. And at number 2, the Florida Everblades, coached again, yes, by Brad Ralph, the three-peat Kelly Cup champions. They last year went out in the Eastern Conference Final, and the dynasty, the run, you could say, ended to the Trois-Rivières Lions in 6 games. But that Brad Ralph has already begun assembling again another really good, really physical roster in South Florida. And honestly, it does look good. The biggest question right now for the Florida Everblades is Cam Johnson. 31 years old, an unrestricted free agent. in the American Hockey League. So if he's unable to get a deal right with the Springfield Thunderbirds, that would prevent him from playing in Florida. And so really at this point, if he hasn't been signed, still with Springfield, I would say that his best chance, at playing for Florida is if he signs a deal directly with the Everblades. So I think, odds are he's holding out, hopefully, to get a deal at the American level. But if not, I think there's a good chance that Cam Johnson would sign directly with the Florida Everblades, which would be great news for this team. So they need that guy in goal. Will Cranley back in the affiliate system for the Everblades. He's a very capable backup goaltender, and he might be getting the starting reps in Florida if Cam Johnson isn't there. So definitely something to look out for. At number 1 this year, the South Carolina Stingrays. And I say this year because they were the Bradman Cup champions, right? They did it in the regular season. 18 straight wins, ended in the last game by Greenville, which they were really excited about that. Then they roll into the playoffs, with still a lot of momentum, right? You've won 18 out of your last 19 games. You go up 2-0 to Orlando. Everything's going right, and then you go on the road, right? You lose game 3, you lose game 4. You're in a 1-goal lead in the third period of game 5. You give that up. You're now in overtime in game 5 to be trailing in the series. And what do? Charlie Combs scores, and it's a 3-2 lead to South Carolina. At that point, with those Orlando fans, they had to be thinking the series could be over. South Carolina fans, they're thinking we're going to game 6 and we're ending this thing. And that is exactly what did not happen. Orlando dominates game 6, brings it to a game 7, and I was there to see the 2-0 shutout loss from the Stingrays and Orlando moving on. So I think, just the disappointment, right, from the Stingrays, it all ending so suddenly in front of the home crowd in the first round. They even had the ice painted. Kelly Cup playoffs, I think they painted that not to be playing 4 home games. I think they expected to be going a lot deeper than that. So huge disappointment. The coaching staff, incredible all season, really. And that's why Jared Nightingale gets the promotion to be the head coach of the Rockford Ice Hogs in the American League. So now stepping into his shoes, right, is David Warsofsky, the younger brother of Ryan Warsofsky, former Stingrays coach and now the coach of the NHL San Jose Sharks. So a lot of pressure on Warsofsky this season to bring those exact same regular season results right in to this season, right? Lot of expectations. He's already signed several key players from last season's team, added some guys. I think this is a team that wants to stay together based on, a lot of re-signings, a team that really wants to stay together. But their goaltending depended a lot on their affiliate, the Hershey Bears, last year. So if they don't get those same goaltenders, down the stretch, it could be that could be a weak spot of this team. I feel like defenseman, forward, center, they've got a lot of guys coming back from last year, but goaltender, are they still going to get the same guys they got from Hershey last year? So that's a big question mark, obviously, for South Carolina. But big expectations for the Stingrays. They want that deep playoff run that they were expecting last season. Well, that'll do it for this episode of the ECHL Insider. Hope you enjoyed our South Division preview, and come back in 2 weeks when we will preview the Western Conference Central Division.